I'm Jake Henry. I'm co-founder of Vibe Youth.
And I'm Karen Carswell, and I'm also a co-founder at Vibe Youth.
We are a social enterprise or community interest company, and what we set out to do is provide levels of support for children and young people's social, emotional, and personal development. And how we do that is by combining a range of different approaches and sharing our own personal lived experiences as a way to inspire positive choices moving forward. So today we are in Yscol Garfolwg doing workshops with year 10s and year 11s, and today's topics, what we're going to cover is emotional intelligence and drugs and alcohol.
What was the thing that made you start Vibe Youth in the first place? What was the initial, was there a problem that you saw that needed to be solved, or how did it start?
Personally, both myself and Jake have kind of been let down by services in the past. And I've always worked with children and young people, and I've really got my finger on the pulse of the issues that young people are facing. And it seems to be the same issues that we were facing through our teen years. We really felt that there was a massive gap in the market for an organisation like ourselves, led by two passionate individuals with the personal lived experience and the academic knowledge to match. We literally it was one of them things that we just decided we're going to do it, we're going to run with it, and we're going to see how we get on. And 4 years later, we're still here, and we're still trying to make a massive difference for young people.
Brilliant. So how did you two meet in the first place? Were you both involved in social enterprises beforehand and met that way, or how did you guys come together to make Vibe?
That story. So I was working for a social enterprise in London. What I was doing there was predominantly working with young people who were involved or on the cusp of involvement in gang activity or gang involvement. A little background about myself. I was part of a London gang growing up when I was younger. I spent 8 years within a London gang. So seeing the issues and seeing young people kind of going towards that lifestyle, for me, it was about using my experiences and how I got out of that lifestyle to kind of divert them away from taking part in gang activity. Kaz was working with younger children, more key stage.
Yeah, my background was more of the early years, so child development in the early years. So I've done a bit of childminding and supporting teaching and learning in schools, and working with young people with profound either challenging issues or profound additional needs or disabilities. So we kind of met at a conference in England, hit it off, and stayed friends. And then when I moved back to Wales, so I was born and bred in Wales, moved to England for 10 years and then moved back. Jake kind of followed me shortly after.
Yeah, not in a creepy way, but yeah, I mean, we kept in touch, and my posts with the social enterprise that I was involved with kind of came to an end. My mum had passed away, and I wanted a fresh start and a new challenge. So me and Kaz had stayed in contact, and we joked about, me coming to Wales, and I went to Wales, visited a few times, and really loved it here, and then took the leap of faith and just moved here on a permanent basis, and that's how I ended up here, and that's how we ended up meeting.
How different was it moving to Wales? Was it a bit of a kind of a shock, or was it particularly different in any way? What was the kind of
from London? Yeah, it was crazy different, man. It was London. Everything is kind of fast paced. It's 100 miles per hour. I think it's very hard to interact with people because everybody's kind of got their own agenda, but everybody's in a hurry to do things. You don't get that kind of friendly approach and that neighbourly love that you get here in Wales. I mean, the first time I moved here, I was living in Neath, and I'd just be walking on the high street, and I'd have random people just, "Good morning, mate," and we'll shamai, and I was thinking, "What the hell are you talking about?" But everybody was very, very welcoming and very friendly. And London is a completely different place. Whereas in London, you could walk down the street you can look at somebody and an altercation can start because of the way that you've looked at somebody, but you don't get that here. So for me, I think everything that I've been through in my life, this is what I needed. It was the right time. Everything is calm here. Everybody's friendly. There's a lot of greenery, and yeah, man, I enjoy walks, and I invested in a pair of wellies, and I do the whole Welsh thing, man. It's lovely.
Do you feel that the problems that you came across growing up in London are applicable to Wales? Do you feel that your background in London is kind of the things that you went through and the problems you want to solve are applicable and similar or different, or what do you think?
I think a bit of the both. I think when I talk to young people, I talk to professionals, and I mention gang activity or that kind of lifestyle, everybody assumes, you don't have to be in a gang, or it's the issues behind that, or the factors behind that. So what I'm talking about is I didn't just join that lifestyle. I want to be part of that lifestyle because I thought it was cool or it was attractive. There was factors behind it. I talk about low confidence, self-worth, lack of resilience, lack of understanding, lack of self-respect, no positive guidance, male role models, and that kind of stuff. So for me, that's the stuff that I experienced, and that's what kind of pushed or pulled me towards that lifestyle. When I first moved to Wales, obviously the gang experience or the gang issue isn't as prevalent as it is in London, but the issues remain the same. Young people who have either been let down by the system, who live in areas of deprivation, have witnessed domestic abuse from a young age, or have experienced abuse from a young age, emotional, physical, lack of self-esteem, lack of confidence, no positive guidance in their life. So the issues that drive us towards negative activities are all the same, whether it's in London, Birmingham, Manchester, the States. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think when I moved to Wales, identifying those issues, it was kind of, wow, it's a completely different country, but the issues are still the same.
When we had a conversation when Jake recently moved, I said what he's going to find is a lot of so the same issues, but maybe not so much gang involvement at the end of it, but substance misuse, homelessness, them kind of issues. And I think Jake was a little bit shocked to see that there are a lot of young people using substances, especially in Swansea, where we do a lot of our work, the Rhondda Valleys, like I say, areas of deprivation, maybe poor upbringing, and the issues tend to be at the far end of it, like I say, homelessness, substance misuse, and mental health issues as well. So and then when you look at Wales and the issues that you're seeing in London, it is coming over. It is coming over. There's a lot of issues now in Cardiff, Barry, Swansea as a city, and it's starting to filter out as well into the other smaller areas, which is such a shame. So I think for us, it's kind of doing that real strong early intervention work to try and tackle the issues before it becomes that big issue where they are looking at youth justice and possibly even prison.
Yeah, just to touch on that quickly, I mean, if you being born and bred in Wales and then looking at the environment now, when you're looking at high levels of county lines, exploitation by organised crime, gang crime, knife crime is on the rise. If you were to look back 20 years ago, living in Wales, you probably never would have thought that Wales would have this problem, But fast forward 20 years, and this is what we're seeing. And if you look at London, it's escalating from areas such as London, Birmingham, Manchester, Sheffield. It is spreading all over the country. So the point I'm trying to make is, Wales was probably once upon a time, a safe place to be, and it still is a safe place to be. But the issues that are driving young people to take part in these activities is what needs to be combated and looked at before they escalate and get to a massive problem.
So In terms of the way you go about tackling those issues, what does like a typical day look like for Vibe Youth? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
We would get referrals typically from schools or youth service, and 9 times out of 10 we're getting the referrals in when they're kind of at their wits' end, so to speak, with a certain group of young people or a particular individual. So we'd get referral information, we'd read through that, we'd go in and do a kind of meet and greet with the young person. 9 times out of 10, they're very happy to see us, actually. And I think the kind of method we use in sharing our own personal lived experiences helps that individual to feel like they're in a safe space and they feel confident enough to kind of open up to us. And then it all depends on what sort of intervention that young person needs. And we go in and we work with the young person to kind of identify the issues that they have in the areas of development that they'd like to work on. And we kind of just devise a plan. And whether that's working with the individual on a one-to-one basis or whether we feel like they would do really well in a group, there's a lot to be said with young people working together as a group, even if they don't particularly like it, because they kind of bounce off each other. They soon realise that a lot of people in the group have got similar issues to the issues they're facing, which actually helps build them up. And yeah, we run long duration projects, short duration projects, and anything in between. And it's all down to what the young person needs, not necessarily what the school or youth provision has told us is the issue. And yeah, and we tend to have a real long lasting relationship with the young person even after our kind of service has ended. We believe that, you know, it took time to kind of break down the walls with that young person, so it would be wrong of us to just kind of go in, do our work and then just kind of bounce and leave. So we try and maintain that relationship for as long as they want it. Yeah, that's kind of what we do in a nutshell, and then everything else.
And that's the fun stuff, I would say, the delivery aspect, working with young people, taking them through that journey from beginning, middle, seeing the outcome at the end, which is a powerful thing and inspiring thing to do and see. And then there's the other side to running a social enterprise, because this is new to us, you know. This is something that, you know, we kind of jumped in and thought, let's just give it a try, and we're learning and developing as we go forward. We've got a really good support network behind us. We've got a really great, a fantastic board that shares our purpose and our values and really are behind us to see Vibe Youth succeed. And then there's the organizational stuff that we do behind the scenes. So as much as we love delivering, working with young people, as people who are running a social enterprise, there's the nitty gritty stuff, the behind the scenes stuff that we got to do, you know. So it's trying to find that balance of operational, strategic growth. You know, how are we going to grow the enterprise? How are we going to create opportunity for others? At the moment, it's just myself and Kaz, but we can't do everything. We're juggling lots of hats, you know, with facilitators, we're founders, we're directors. So it's about looking and creating a plan. So moving forward, that pressure comes off our shoulders and others are involved, and we can focus more on the operational side, and then the delivery side. You know, we've got a core team of facilitators that believe in our values and are passionate about supporting young people, and go out there and do a really great job in supporting youth.
What would you say was the biggest challenge for Vibe Youth at the minute?
I think for me, I think the delivery side of it is the easy bit. Like Jake said, that's the fun bit for us. That's the bit that, you know, we thrive off of, you know, supporting and helping young people and seeing their little faces every day. That's the good bit. The major challenge for me actually was, so leaving school, I kind of left school in a bit of a hurry, no real education. So we're trying to learn a lot of things on the job.
We're still, you know, like I said earlier, we're still developing. There's still areas of our personal development that we're working on to grow and to really understand how a social enterprise works and how we can benefit communities and individuals within the community. But yeah, I think the operational side is challenging, because we're having to learn things that we've got no knowledge from or of. So it does make it a little bit tricky at times, and it does, you know, hamper our confidence. But we persevere, we keep going because we believe in what we're trying to achieve. So we just keep on going.
Amazing. So despite all those challenges, what's the thing that makes you sort of get up in the morning and want to do what you want to do? What's been the proudest moment, your proudest achievement as Vibe Youth, would you say so far?
There's so many. There's literally so many.
I think starting it for a fact, starting it and sustaining it. I think when we first started, we had so many conversations with local authorities and other third sector organisations, and we were just trying to get our foot in the door. And there were times when we would be having these discussions and it was almost as if like we were getting laughed at in the room, you know, and no one would give us the time of day. So I think the fact that for me, on a personal achievement, the fact that we've had the guts to start something and really work hard to grow it and sustain it, for me, that's a massive achievement in itself. But if you were looking at what we do, then, you know, what gets us out of bed in the morning is supporting young people, man, 100%.
And for me, I think, the proudest moment is kind of setting up and securing our first ever contract with Neath Port Talbot Youth Service. That always sticks in my mind, because I think, you know, we were the new kids on the block. They didn't have to give us a chance. They gave us a chance. They believed in us, and they commissioned us for over a year. And that was amazing, you know, that was literally right at the beginning. And another proud moment is for me right now, juggling everything, kids, the homeschooling, the business, you know, I say to myself every day, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back, because it's hard, it is hard. So yeah, that's another proud moment for me.
What advice would you give to anyone wanting to start a social enterprise or something similar to what you guys, if you could sort of, if you could give yourself any advice when you were starting, what would you say?
Just do it. That's the simplest thing. Just believe in yourself and do it. But also, as a social enterprise, we obviously, there's an issue that we've identified and what we're trying to, an issue that we're trying to tackle. So do your research. Surround yourself with good people.
Build your networks. I think is really important to build your network. So if you're starting up, as long as you've got a good, solid, you know, amount of people around you that believe in your vision, or, you know, are there to kind of spur you on, I think that would really help, because it's helped us no end.
Yeah, and just believe in the solution that you have in order to tackle the issue. I think a lot of people have ideas. And that's great, but there's no such thing as a silly idea. But when you're looking to tackle an issue, if you have a solution to that issue, believe in it, man. Work in it so it grows. And if you think it's going to be effective, and then I'll just say go for it, isn't it? Because we had doubts before we started, but we took that leap of faith and just thought, you know what, let's just jump and let's just see what happens, isn't it? And imagine 4 years ago we didn't do that. I mean, I don't know where we would be, but we got to kind of like the edge and we just thought, you know what, let's just jump, let's just see what happens. We know what the issue is, we have a solution, let's just put it into practice, and let's work on it and see what happens. And, you know, I think we're doing okay.
I've done a few of these now, and every time when I ask that question, they all say, go for it. It's exact same response.
You have to, isn't it? Because, you know, otherwise you'd regret things, isn't it? You'd be thinking, you know, a year down the line, oh, what I should have, or I wonder if I should. No, I don't. Just do it, isn't it? Because at least you tried. I would say at the end of the day, you tried, it succeeded, great. If it didn't succeed, you had the guts to try, and then you learn from it. If it fails, at least you can kind of reflect on it and say, well, what are the issues or what are the barriers that stopped it from growing, and learn from it, and then you try again. So.
And what a wonderful feeling, you know, when you set up a social enterprise, you know, for good, and you're feeding off of all the goodness that comes from that. So yeah, I think it's bold to try at the beginning, and it kind of feeds your passion constantly, knowing that you're doing good for the community. So win-win as far as I'm concerned.